Hopefully y'all can hear me. Hopefully y'all can hear me. Let me actually make sure. I'm trying something a little bit new today. So welcome, welcome, welcome. First and foremost, hopefully everybody had a great weekend. If you could hear the music in the background, then that's just a plus, but I'm going to double check right now. All right, so there's no audio. 1 second, 1 second. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me. Always something we got to get through. It's all good. Oh, shoot. I realized something. I got a different camera up. I ain't mad at this camera, but I prefer the other one. All right, there we go. Are we going? Are we on? Are we on? Are we on? Oh, no. Can y'all hear me in the chat? Can you hear me? Oh, all right, you good. Shout out to my brother Vons in the building. Vons, I don't know why the audio's not working with the music in the back. Let me try to get that going. But hopefully everybody had a great weekend. A lot of positive things happening. I had one of the homies just moved down, so I'm amped about that. I don't know why. I don't know why the music isn't playing. But it's all good. It's all good. We had a great weekend. We got a great show for y'all today. A lot to talk about. Let me actually see if I can tone this thing down a little bit. We're a little bit I'm a little light over here with this. Oh, this damn light. I don't know why it's moving like this, but give me a second. Give me a second. Please make sure as you are joining that you are liking. That's going to help boost the algorithm. What do we got on the schedule for today? So let me know if any of y'all saw that Douglas Murray, Dave Smith interview. Let me know if you saw that. So we're going to go over that a little bit with Douglas Murray and Dave Smith. All right, that's better, right? That's better. You can see a little bit in the background. We're going to go over that. We're going to go over Bill Maher. He finally broke his silence on what happened at his dinner with Donald Trump. And then we got a whole bunch of other stuff that's going to take up the majority of the time. The Douglas Murray, Dave Smith interview, just going over that situation. We got some comments on the Karmelo Anthony situation. Not anything necessarily to look at, but just some thoughts that I was having over the Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf situation. And apparently Stephen A. Smith announced that he would have to be taking a presidential run seriously. So we'll get into maybe a little bit about that. Let's start off with some of the icebreakers. Yeah, we got a full show. So I'm going to need y'all engagement. I'm trying something a little bit new because on the last show, something weird happened. I don't know if y'all were aware of, but I didn't bring up any of the comments after the first 50 minutes. I thought that y'all just weren't feeling the kid. And apparently, I just wasn't receiving any of the alerts for you guys giving your comments. So I have some of the comments on here that I see me looking up a little bit. I have it on the TV just to be sure. And yeah, so my apologies about that. We even had a super chat, and I didn't even acknowledge the super chat. So that is why. Then even after the show, actually on Friday, good thing I didn't say anything crazy because after the show, even when I shut it down, it kept recording live. I think Ebony was on there, and I think Joy was on there as well. So, or Honest, I'm not sure. I think it was Joy. But neither here nor there. We got a good show for y'all today. So let's get into some of these icebreakers. One that I wanted y'all to take a look at was a Chinese gentleman. He had some thoughts on the whole tariffs against China, Americans' perception against China. I think that a lot of our politicians, a lot of us, maybe even me, we've done a job of perhaps painting China in a particular light. Well, I don't think that I've done it, but more so just looking at the faults on our end where we got into this position. where China is doing a lot better with our business relationship than we are doing with our business relationship with China. Um, and I don't think we should blame China. I don't think we should blame China. We should blame ourselves. But he had some interesting things to say about the tariffs. So let me share those with y'all. Hold on. Let me catch up with Von's comments real quick. Let me catch up with your comments, Von. So Von's wrote, talk about them twins they found in GA. I'm not even familiar with that, bro. I'm not even familiar with that. So two black twins found dead by a white volunteer firefighter. Yeah, I don't know about it. If you send me the article though, talk about it next show. Or if you send me a clip of it, we can put it on maybe later on. Just send it over. Send it over. I haven't heard about it. I haven't heard about it. But let's take a look at this. You guys let me know your thoughts. Which way are we going today? Sometimes I like this way. Sometimes I like this way. Sometimes I like this way. Yeah, we'll be over here today. We'll be over here.
Manufacturing,
All right, let me share this with
only
you
one
guys.
of us
You
use
guys let me know your thoughts on it. Like I said, just the icebreaker. Let's not spend too much time on it. Wait, hold on. I just realized something. I can't hear this. All right, we're gonna do something real quick. We're gonna do something real quick. Give me a second. Give me a second, because I want to make sure that you guys can hear the video, because I'm having a little bit of issues on my end with the audio. Hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Output speaker. Let me see if I could do it this way. Let me see if it'll.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it.
I'm having some issues
That's
with
a
this
tragedy.
audio. Give me a second. Give me a second, real quick. I'm just gonna have
Right
to
now, Americans,
reset it on
you
my
don't need a
side.
tariff.
Bear with
You
me.
need
Hold. Wow. Let me see.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy.
Yeah, do you
That's a
guys
scam.
hear the audio?
That's why I'm saying this right now.
I can't hear the audio of
Americans,
the guy. So
you
just
don't
give me
need
a
a tariff.
second. I
You
don't know
need a
what's
revolution.
working, but we figure it
For
out. We figure
decades,
it out. We
your
don't stress.
government
We don't
and
stress.
oligarchs who ship your job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap
I think
laborers.
I'm need to.
And
Okay,
in the
I'm gonna
process,
have to turn
they
off
hollow
the.
out your middle class,
That's
crushed
the
your
issue.
working class, and
Hold
taught
on.
you to be proud while they sold your future for profit.
All
And
right, my
yes,
apologies
China
on
made
that.
money, but we used.
That's my fault. I tried to use the TV display in the background. I guess you shouldn't be trying new stuff out, but we tried it, didn't work, so we're gonna pivot. All right, let's get into this video.
They rob you blind and you thank them for it. That's a tragedy. That's a scam. That's why I'm saying this right now. Americans, you don't need a tariff. You need a revolution. For decades, your government and oligarchs who ship your job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap laborers.
So this is 2 minutes, so I'm not gonna let the whole video go. We will stop it at certain points. So what he just suggested is that we don't need tariffs, we need a revolution. I agree. I agree. I agree. And I believe that that revolution is going to be based on a lot of different things. Shout out to Vons. Vons said the other day, nobody wants to work on farms. Nobody wants to work on factories or work in factories. A lot of people apparently in America, we feel that we are too good for a lot of these low level peasant like jobs, I guess we would call them. Even Jasmine Crockett, we played a video the other day of her jumping out the window saying, nobody wants to farm. Nobody wants to farm. And what's funny is I actually saw a video where they did a story in 2024 on a gentleman, black gentleman, that was trying to get rid of the stigma, not only around farming when it came to black people, but around picking cotton, actually. and that type of agriculture and how he's become very successful in agriculture. But when this gentleman says it's not a tariff problem, we need a revolution, I get what he's saying. We need a change in mindset. We need a shift in mindset from us as people, the Americans, to put proper pressure and hold the elites accountable to not doing what's best for the elites, which would be to bring in either illegal migrants to do the labor at a low cost that Americans don't want to do it, or to do the same thing and shipping it out to other countries, which is what we've done, which is why we've lost a lot of our factory jobs, manufacturing, and everything else. So we could sit here and blame China and do the blame game, but it's simple. China said, okay, you guys want to exploit cheaper labor, we'll do what's best for our interest, or however you see it, we'll do what's best for us, we'll profit off of it, and in the meantime we'll make sure that we're making a whole lot more money off of us selling products to America rather than y'all selling products to us. So this is what this gentleman is saying, so let's keep hearing him out.
Job to China, not for diplomacy, not for peace, but to exploit cheap labors. And in the process, they hollowed out your middle class, crushed your working class, and told you to be proud while they sold your future for profit. And yes, China made money, but we used it to build roads, lift millions out of poverty, fund healthcare, raise living standard. We reinvested in our people. My family also benefited from it. What did your oligarchs do?
What did your oligarchs do? And what's so funny is you see somebody like Bernie Sanders on this oligarchy tour, right? Him and AOC. They're talking about the oligarchs. But then we played a video from 2008 when Bernie Sanders was talking about tariffs. And he was actually saying that it's a right-wing mindset to ship jobs out of America and do what this gentleman is saying that America did, which is ship jobs, the manufacturing factory jobs out of America, ship them to China, ship them to other countries so we can exploit their cheap labor. That's what benefits the elites. But then you have Bernie Sanders in 2025 and AOC criticizing a lot of the things that Donald Trump has done, even though Bernie Sanders, Nancy Pelosi, we played y'all the videos the other day, they were the ones that were for tariffs. They were the ones that were for getting American jobs back in America rather than shipping them out to other countries. But when Donald Trump actually implements it, seems to be an issue. So Bernie, it's just kind of, I don't know whether the right word is hypocrisy or just, I'm not sure if it's consistent behavior, where you're sitting here on one end in 2008 saying, hey, we got to get the jobs back. But then when Trump is saying it in 2025, you're claiming that this is the government of oligarchs, just because I guess he's aligned now with the elites that the Democrats used to be aligned with, whether it's Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, who used to lean liberal and who used to put up a lot of money for the Democrat candidates. But I guess now that they're leaning now with Trump, now it's the oligarchs, now it's a problem. So oligarchs, elitist, I'm sure like a lot of businesses, like the cheaper the labor that they can get. The cheaper I can pay for some labor, the cheaper that I can pay to produce this product, the wider I can have a margin, that benefits the business. But for whatever reason, we're not drawing the connection when it comes to Trump and wanted to bring back the jobs and how that would be beneficial. Let's keep going. And I know I got some comments, probably some from Vons.
Mentions
oh,
of
Vons, that
they manipulate
up,
the market, dodge tax, and poured billions into endless wars. And you get stagnated wages, crippling healthcare costs, cheap dopamine, debt, and flag wave property made in China while they pick your pocket. For 40 years, both China and the United States benefit from the trade, the manufacturing, but only one of us use that wealth to build. This isn't China's fault. This is yours. You let this happen. You let the oligarchs fit your lies while they made you fat, poor, and addicted. Now they blame China for mess they made. I don't think so. I don't think you need another tariff. You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. I think you need a revolution.
You need to wake up. You need to take your country back. He's not talking to the American elite. He's not talking to our politicians. He's talking to us as a people. Instead of getting caught up in all this emotional back and forth, debating on these, whether it's the woke ideologies or maybe some extreme right-wing ideologies, instead of getting caught up on that, there needs to be a practical, common sense approach to doing what's best for the people. Over the weekend, I was watching this this documentary. Matter of fact, let me finish his, and then I'll tell you about this documentary, or a clip from this documentary that I heard over the weekend that I want to reference regarding some of the things that he's mentioned. And so let me finish what he's saying, and then I'll tell you about what I heard over the weekend.
To take the country back. I think you need a revolution.
All right, so he was done. All right, so over the weekend, I was looking at something, and they were doing a study in prison. I forget where I heard it, maybe on some type of podcast, but they were talking about how the correctional officers in prison, they prefer when the inmates are beefing with each other. Whether you got the, I don't know, white supremacy group here, your Bloods, Crips, Muslims, however it plays out, right? Whatever. The different groups, when they're going at war with each other, the correctional officers have an immense amount of control. They can control everything because they know that the groups are going against each other. So their focus is on going to war with each other rather than their focus on coming together and perhaps going to war against the correctional officers. We've seen some of these like prison uprisings and stuff. We've seen them on TV shows. There's actually been some in real life as well. Some relevant ones. I can't think of any off the top of my mind, but there's one that comes to mind where there was a big prison riot where Attica, maybe that's it. But the correctional officers were in a position where they said as soon as the groups start working together, and instead of aiming their efforts and their differences and focusing on their differences and aiming their efforts at each other, they started to focus on the correctional officers. And they said that is the most dangerous time for them to be correctional officers. So think about what the gentleman was saying. Instead of us allowing ourselves to fight these emotional battles and develop all this hatred, and you got George Floyd situations that are causing the country to hate each other. You got the recent situation with Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony. Now people feel like we got to pick sides and go against each other and talk about black versus white, all these different things that we get caught up emotionally because our leaders want us to get caught up emotionally. All that does is move our focus from focusing on the things that we should be focusing on, the things that are actually going to help everyday Americans, us, the people. We move those to the side to focus on ignorant stuff that does not matter. It is just going to keep us stagnant, while the true elites and oligarchs, they benefit. The politicians, the pawns for the elites and oligarchs, they benefit. That's what ends up happening when we get caught up in this emotional battle against each other. We end up doing ourselves a disservice. It's that same term that we always talk about. We end up hustling backwards. We feel that our fight is against each other rather than holding the so-called leaders accountable to implement the things that would be beneficial for us, the people. That's what ends up happening. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this concept when we discuss the Karmelo Anthony situation with Austin Metcalf a little bit later. But these are just some thoughts that were going through my head when I was watching this video, where think about the things that we get caught up with. Think about the things that emotionally trigger us the most. Think about the fact that we're fighting over what is a woman. Think about all these goofy things that we fight over for what? Like Steve just wrote in the comments, all it is divide and conquer, and we're not realizing it. We're not even caring about it. We're not holding the people accountable that are manipulating us and fooling us into hating each other so they can push their agendas. They used to do this in Rome. It's like when the people started complaining about stuff, oh yeah, let's throw some people in a cage with some animals and have them fight each other. The gladiators, they would have sports, they would have games to distract people. And it's the same thing that's going on now. It is the exact same thing. So once again, that's an icebreaker. We're not going to take too much time on that. We're going to move on to, I think we have a video from Wallo. I think there was a video from Wallo on here. And if not, we may go to a different video first. Oh, no, here it is. All right. So Wallo, if you're not familiar, Wallo is Gilly the Kid's cousin. They have their show, $1 Million Worth of Game. He had some interesting things to say about people supporting Black business and businesses. And I want to share it with y'all and get y'all thoughts. Would love to share this with y'all and get y'all thoughts. This was music to my ears, but I'll let y'all get y'all own thoughts from it. All right, here we go.
Us. Oh, I'm Black. Oh, Black people. Nobody gives a fuck about that. Kill that shit. Either you got a good business or you don't. All that shit, don't nobody want to hear that shit. That's a hustle. Support me because I got a Black business. Is your restaurant clean? Is the food good? Do you got consistent cooks? Is the material of your shit good? Stop doing that. Oh, you support the white people? No, I support consistency, baby. Yeah. Fuck about what color you is. I'm gonna spend my money. That paper, I'm gonna spend them deals where the fuck I want to spend it at. Whether it's Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini, I'm gonna do what the fuck I want to do while I'm here. But I'm gonna tell you one thing, I ain't gonna be finessed off some Black shit. But one thing about it, 70% of you motherfuckers is not going to make it. I'm not no motherfucking fake ass motivational speaker that talk this dumb shit. I'm the #1 nigga in the country. You know why? Y'all seen me come out of the penitentiary. I make millions and I make millionaires, baby. You understand me? I come from the ghetto.
I think we got to be very careful with that support Black businesses and all this other stuff, and us just doing things because we're Black, and us thinking that we can put pressure on different people to support our businesses, and thinking that we could just say, oh, well, I'm a Black owned business. Oh, well, I'm a women owned business. Oh, well, we support LGBTQ. We got the sticker in our window, so you should buy our products. That is not how this stuff goes. This thing became huge after 2020 with George Floyd, when it was the Black Lives Matter, then it turned into the LGBTQ rights, all this other stuff, to where we thought that, oh, we're just going to do something. We're just supporting anything just because it's Black. We think that this type of racist mindset, because that's what it is. It's literally what happens in the country, and we've discussed it all the time. It's literally the conversation that happens with Donald Trump, where I talked about a lot of these people that can't stand Donald Trump so much, and they tell you the reasons why they can't stand him. And then when you have a conversation with them and you support him in certain ways, they turn into the very things that they say they hate about Donald Trump. This is the same stuff that happens. So now we're going to solve racism with racism. Like, do we want to live in harmony with each other? Well, what's the goal? I guess we should establish the goal first. Do we want to live in harmony with each other? Do we want to, the same things that we praise every February when it comes around in MLK, and we're talking about judging people on the content of their character, not the color of their skin? Which one do we want to go? Like, which way we want to go? I told y'all the other day when I went to that Jordan Peterson event, one thing that stood out to me that I had a great takeaway was establish your desire first and then have your actions and thoughts based on that. What is the goal first and foremost? And then let's figure out a plan that aligns with that goal. So if the goal is for us to live in harmony, if the goal is for us to get rid of racism, then we're not going to solve it with racism. Now, you could do whatever it is that you want. Like I said, that's a personal decision. Whether it's hiring whoever you want to hire all Black people, hire all Black people. You want to hire all women, hire all women. You want to hire all gay people, hire all gay people. Doesn't matter to me. But I'm just talking to the point that Wallo said, because this is the energy that I've been on. I've had the mindset where it's like, oh, let me, go put my money in this Black bank, this, that. First and foremost, have the product right. Have the product correct. I don't want to come to the restaurant and it's lunchtime and y'all aren't ready for lunchtime and there's no veggie patties. There's no big, we can't allow our mindset to be so fixated on race that we prioritize that over actually the value of the product. So, and I'm sure y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Restaurant down the street. Caribbean. Yeah. Every time you go in there, we trying to support y'all so much, and y'all getting off with just us supporting y'all just cause y'all for the people, right? Y'all the Black business. And if it was a white business, I would have been stopped going there. Just keeping it real. So this is the stuff that Wallo's saying. I think the main takeaway is you may not like what I just said, may not like what Wallo just said, but it comes down to your product. I would never jump on here and say, yo, jump on my podcast. It's Black owned. Make sure you watch my podcast. It's Black. That thought has never come to my mind, like at all, ever, at all. But I guess, like I said earlier with the Jordan Peterson, I guess depending on your desires, depending on whether you want to take the easy way out based on George Floyd and what has been created with all these identity politics where we see the world only through identity. I guess there's been a lot of lazy marketing, whether it's women owned, whether it's Black owned, whether it's all this other stuff that I'm just not going for. So I guess Wallo feels the same. I don't know. Maya said you have to have quality service and product regardless. Yeah. So that's what I'm on, but to each their own. So let me, I think we got one more icebreaker that we'll share before we'll get into the heavy part of the show. All right. Let me make sure this screen is shared. All right, boom. So an interesting clip on the Department of Education. And I don't think this had anything to do with Trump directly. You'll see the video. I think it's a little bit older, but it does speak on perhaps why a lot of people feel strongly about dismantling the Department of Education. And perhaps on the flip side, why a lot of people feel very strongly about not dismantling the Department of Education. So let's take a look at this video.
You're saying they're brainwashing. Okay, you're saying these people that are experts in brainwashing is using the Department of Education to brainwash our children.
Yes.
What are they after? Why are they doing it?
Well, if you want to move a country from a free individualistic economy,
Which we have.
yes, or had,
Or had, okay.
to a planned economy, you have to do it through the schools. You have to dumb down and brainwash, change the attitudes and values. You have to completely, social engineering has to go on constantly. And many teachers know what I'm talking about. And people are going to say, well, when did this start? And who on earth ever did this? Why would a plan like that be allowed to be carried out?
That's right.
Well, then you have to go back to 1934, which I will do, and we have to go to the three-pronged fork, okay? So I do think that the watershed year, although you can go back to the early part of the century when the Rockefeller Foundation and the Carnegie Corporation were deeply involved in education, and that it was decided then that Carnegie would deal with the international part and Rockefeller domestic. But then we moved on to 1934, and this was after World War I, and there were these educators were, many of them, going back and forth to Russia, very admiring of the new system in Russia, the communistic system, and they wanted to put it in here in the United States. And so the Carnegie Corporation, that had always been involved in, trying to get us into world government after the League of Nations and all in 1917, they still had this goal. And of course, world government will be communism. I mean, it's really international socialism. That's what Lenin called it. So they've always wanted this. And
the Department of Education today is going along with that?
Yes, absolutely, yes. And so in 1934, the Carnegie Corporation produced, it took 4 years, they commissioned the American...
And just to give y'all a heads up, we're obviously not watching 11 minutes of this, but I just wanted to share the beginning, and we're going to listen to a little bit more. But keep in mind, when you think about college campuses, they've done plenty of studies where they determine like 8 out of 10, or it's either 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, something like that. College professors are liberal Democrats. College campuses are some of the most liberal bubbles in America. It's not balanced. So when people say that they want diversity, equity, and inclusion, why does that energy never come why is that energy never based on ideals, perspective on life, thoughts, how people see the world? Diversity is simply just based on the color of somebody's skin, right? It's based on, okay, we need sexual preference. It's based on handicap. But why do we not want diversity of thought? Why is it okay for a college campus to be dominated with liberal ideology But then at the same time, we're saying that we want diversity, equity, inclusion, because when you get people that think differently and see the world from different perspectives, that you achieve more, that you get a better result. So when you have the Department of Education, people have been saying this for a very long time. Black leaders, white leaders, all different types of leaders have been complaining about the programming that goes on in the public school system, especially the programming. It's no different. They've solved the problem. They've solved the problem of parents. Since kids are no longer working on farms, parents need somewhere to put their kids during the day, right? So it's just a nice way of, or it's a way of getting babysitting, right? Put them in public school. That's the babysitting. Oh, so we can incentivize them to have this babysitting, right? Free education, even though you're paying it with their taxes, but the appearance of free education, we can incentivize them to be able to babysit their kids. But while they're here, we're going to make sure that we program them a certain way. Now, a lot of people may say, well, we're not getting programmed. We're not. Well, I mean, to each their own. To each their own. I don't know. I mean, the benefits of public school education, I don't know if I use anything other than the greatest part of public education, in my opinion, is the social aspect, learning how to engage with others. That's probably my biggest takeaway of what I use from this quote unquote education. I don't know, but to me, it's more programming. It's more getting us to think a particular way, to see the world a particular way, to read history from a particular lens that allows our country, America, to then get into different disputes. But at least we'll always be able to say, oh, no, well, we grew up thinking that this was one way. So that justifies that war killing all those people. And we're going to get into that a little bit later on with this Dave Smith, Douglas Murray conversation. So let's listen to maybe about 20 more seconds of this and then we'll move on.
Historical Association to put together a study of the social studies. And they came up with lots of volumes, but I have one little volume, Conclusions and Recommendations for the Social Studies. And basically that little one is an original book. I wish I'd brought it with me. Too bad. But I don't even dare let it out of the house. It's so important. It called for changing the United States through the schools from a free individualistic economy to a socialist, collectivized, planned economy in the New World Order.
It says that in the book?
Yes.
And that book was written when?
In 1934.
By who?
It was the Carnegie Corporation paid for it. The American Historical Association put it together. And
can people get that book in the library?
No.
No? No?
No, they can't. But I have quotes in my book, from it. But from that time on, Carnegie Corporation consistently, without any hesitation whatsoever, didn't run into any obstruction, poured its money, its tax-exempt money, which we make possible for them to have, into changing American education.
Have you guys ever thought about this? Maybe this is an obvious thing. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. See, people without money, or maybe I should start off the sentence with people with money want people without money to chase money. While people with money, they've realized that what's more important than money is power and control. And that's what will always allow them to be at the top. But they convince the people that don't have as much money that money should be the ultimate scoreboard. So when we wonder why these rich people donate to certain organizations, or George Soros will give this amount of money to this group, or even Elon will give this amount of money, let's say to Trump, when we see wealthy people giving what a lot of us may say absurd amounts of money, now maybe not compared to what they have, but contributing money to a lot of these different causes, in my opinion, this is why. Because if you don't have a lot of money, the folk that we don't have a lot of money, relatively speaking, right? It's all relative, but compared to what they have, we don't have a lot of money. What do we do all day and every day? We chase money. They're chasing power and control. They're in an entirely different game than us. We're in a game fighting to have money so we can buy materialistic things, so we can quote unquote buy freedom, buy all this other stuff. Yeah, we're chasing freedom by way of money. They're chasing control and power. They're chasing power by way of controlling us. And that's two different things. And when we only look at it from a money standpoint, we're missing out from the big picture of what's actually happening. The wealthiest people in this country, the wealthiest people in the world, they control everything. So even though Bernie Sanders and AOC, they can go on whatever oligarchy tour that they want because Donald Trump aligned himself with Elon Musk, this is something that has been going on for a very, very long time. These politicians are just puppets for the elite. That's why when it comes to the mainstream news outlets, it's no different. Who controls the mainstream news outlets? All the powerful people with money, the BlackRocks, the people that invest in all these pharmaceuticals, all the people that have the most amount of money, they're chasing control and they want to change the way that we think. They want to program us. That's their most important currency, not money. So when we understand that, then we can kind of take a step back and say, well, okay, if it's most important for them to control us, to program us, how are they trying to program us? What would be in their best interest to program us? Why are we learning this type of thing in school? Why are we learning this history in school? Why are we learning it from this perspective and not hearing about it from this perspective? Why are they pushing all this victim stuff on us? All these different things align with the outcome that a lot of these elites are looking to have. And it's just the elites at the top that are having a battle of, well, I'm programming them to do this. Well, I'm programming them to do this. So they all have different pawns that they throw out there on the board and to push their particular agenda. And if we look at it like that, circling back to what we were discussing earlier, talking about the jails and the prisons, how the COs, the correctional officers, prefer to have everybody beefing. You know, you got the whites against the blacks, against the Italians, against the Irish, against the Muslims, against all these different things. They'd rather have that rather than those groups getting along and coming together and then having a mindset on, okay, we're all in this together. How can we push and make certain change and do certain things that are going to implement positive things for all of us in here rather than just fighting each other? This is no different than what happens in the big picture of America and the big picture of the world, in my opinion. So let's move on. I did have one more video that I wanted to show y'all. I'm not sure if I will. Shy, what's up, Shy? Shout out to Shy in the building. Steve wrote, I read the document she's referring to a few years ago. Very interesting. Wow. All right. What's your take, Steve? What's your take? Conclusions and recommendations for the social studies. Wow. All right. I'm going to have to try to find that. Prisons are just a microcosm. Bub, I agree. All right, I'll play the other short that I was going to play. I'll play that later on for y'all. Let's get into the actual let's get into some of this meat of this show. I think we have, all right, so we're going to take a look at Bill Maher. So we got Bill Maher. We have his clip from his monologue that he did, I believe was it on Saturday? No, on Friday. And he went to dinner with Trump, I think 2 weeks ago, with Kid Rock, and he finally came on his show. He took off last week, came on this week, and finally gave his thoughts on what happened when he went to the White House. So maybe I'll be over here for now. Maybe we'll give him the full screen for this. But very interesting. I want to preface it with certain things, but I also just want to let y'all see it so y'all can formulate y'all own opinion. So let's go that route. All right, we got it on the screen. Let's see what Bill Maher had to say about his dinner and visit to the White House with Donald Trump. I think that he had an excellent writer doing all that stuff. And Vons, I can't spend too much time on it because other people I know, y'all sitting back saying like, yo, why does he even keep addressing this stuff? Vons, I'm just gonna ask you one more time. You said you didn't vote for that mess. What do you support? What do you have issues with? I've asked you nonstop to tell me what are your issues with what Trump is doing specifically, and then we can address it. What things do you like that the other party's doing, or what things do you like that anybody's doing? What would you do? Like, other than that, I'm gonna block you, bro. I'm gonna block you out of my mind. Other than that, because you gotta come with some type of substance, bro. Substance, please. I'm begging you. All right, so let's move on. All right, so this next conversation, let me throw it on the screen. Y'all can probably already see where I'm going. I got to keep my word. I got to keep my word. I got to keep my word. I'm going to show y'all an example of why you got to keep your word to yourself more than anybody else. All right. And maybe you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't. But let's get into this conversation with Dave Smith and Douglas Murray. This was a very difficult podcast to watch. I recommend that everybody take a look at the Joe Rogan podcast with Dave Smith and Douglas Murray. I recommend that everybody take a look at it. This, to me, we talked a little bit earlier about, what did we say, that prisons are a microcosm? I think Maya mentioned that earlier. This conversation, in my opinion, is a microcosm of why we are in such a dark place in the world, of why we are in such a dark place. Douglas Murray, I don't even really know how to describe it. I don't even know who Douglas Murray is. I know he's a writer, and I know that Donald Trump actually just promoted his book, said that he's a good friend of his. So I guess, I'm not aligned with Donald Trump on this, because I was disgusted. I'm using Donald Trump words. I was disgusted by Douglas Murray on this show, in his conversation with Dave Smith. And I'm going to share with you some of those clips as to why I was disgusted. I've never heard about Douglas Murray before this interview. I know he's a very popular and influential person. I've never heard about him. So I don't have any, prejudices going in as pertaining to him, as far as me not liking him for other reasons before this. None. This is my first time being introduced to him. Now, what I will say is Dave Smith, who he's debating, I love Dave Smith. Dave Smith is my guy. Dave Smith may be one of my favorite people to just sit and listen to. He's a comedian that also tells a lot of truths, let me not say tells a lot of truths, because truths, I guess, in the eyes of the beholder, not beauty, but truths, right? I like his perspective on a lot of things. I like how he breaks down a lot of things. Dave Smith, he's actually Jewish. Actually, I think he's Jewish by way of and German. And Douglas Murray, I believe he's British, based on the accent. I guess we would be able to confirm that. But let's just get into the combo. Yeah, there was a lot of back and forths. Douglas Murray is clearly more on the pro-Israel side, pro-Zionist side, I would say, from me hearing the conversation. Dave Smith I wouldn't say that Dave Smith is pro-Palestinian. I wouldn't say that. I just think that Dave Smith is more of what Bill Maher described in the beginning, of a centrist. And now I know people, this is the thing, when you're in the middle and you're more of the moderate, the people on both sides are going to think that you align with the opposite side if you don't agree with everything they say. If you're a moderate Democrat and you don't agree that there should be tampons in boys' bathrooms, they're going to tell you that, oh, you're a conservative. If you're a moderate conservative that doesn't believe that, there should never be abortions, if you don't believe that there should be an abortion ban, they may say, no, you're a liberal. It's just how a lot of this stuff goes. It is what it is. Dave's stance, yes, I'm glad that you wrote that. Dave's stance is anti-war. He's a libertarian. He doesn't want the government. He doesn't want big government getting involved in all of our stuff. He doesn't want our tax dollars going to funding all these wars. He doesn't want all this stuff that a lot of us complain about. He doesn't want. So let's just get into the actual show.
I do also think that one of the bigger, kind of the bigger picture dynamics to all of this is that we have, at least since 9/11, been in a state of perpetual war. And all of these wars have been disasters. They have been so many lies involved in selling all of them. I mean, the whole Iraq war, the whole war in Afghanistan, just lying the whole way through. I mean, I remember literally having conversations with Green Berets in the middle of the war in Afghanistan, and they're like, George W. Bush is telling you that the army we're building up there is really successful. This thing's going to fall in a week without us. And then all through the Obama administration, it's just like lie after lie after lie with disastrous wars. And so this does create a fertile ground for people to say, I wonder if they were lying about all these wars.
Sure.
Again, I'm not really trying to argue with you about World War II. I'd rather argue about these wars today.
I think the interesting question is whether you're busy watering it.
Well, should you not talk about mistakes that were made
You should.
overall?
Absolutely.
Okay, you should.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm all for going back and looking at mistakes.
So what is your argument then?
It's a very weird thing to go back, zone in on a man, say this one thing is a mistake and should characterize him, and you ignore everything else.
You're taking him
It's
out of
like
context when you're talking
weird
about
thing to
Daryl,
do.
who's done, what was it, 30 plus hours?
So what? 30 plus hours of
But
podcasting. You do that in a week. I mean,
Yeah, but
come on.
it's a very different thing.
different
It's a very
thing.
different
He's
thing.
not doing a podcast like talking to people.
Okay, nor is he doing scholarly work, nor is he working in the archives, clearly. Come on. I mean, he is not the historian of our era.
He's not claiming to be.
This is the thing, Joe. This is like punching jelly.
No, but you
It can
don't
always
consume,
adapt-
but
it
you
can
don't
adapt
consume his
around.
work.
What I'm saying, because I don't need to consume endless versions of a revisionist history. I understand.
But
I
it's
know
not
where this comes
revisionist
from.
history. If you listen to his work, it's not revisionist history. He's basing it on historical
But
work.
yeah, I know. But okay, so this is my point about jelly. It's a shape-shifting thing. Comedian or historian?
He's not a comedian.
Historian or podcast? Would-be historian or actual historian? You say he doesn't claim to be a historian, but he's pumping out tens of hours of
Well, neither
history.
does Dan Carlin. He doesn't claim to be a historian either.
You see my point about the move. It's like some weird jujitsu move.
No, I don't-
Where you say,
Just to give y'all a little context, because I'm realizing now, looking back on it, if you didn't watch the full interview, you may be a little bit lost. This gentleman has an issue with quote unquote non-experts speaking about certain things. And I think what it comes down to is exactly what we were talking about earlier when I was mentioning bonds. You only have an issue when non-experts are speaking on certain things, or when certain people are speaking on certain things when you don't agree with what they're saying. If those same quote unquote non-experts spoke on those certain things and had the same viewpoint as you would have absolutely no problem with it. The problem with that is, and I think they're getting ready to get into it, is exactly what happened in 2020. We relied on the experts, and the experts were wrong. They told us 6 feet distancing. They told us to wear masks. They told us all these different things that they were wrong about. They told us that the vaccine would prevent the spread. All these different things that they said, or a lot of these different things that they've said, have now been proven wrong. They said that it didn't start. They said it started in the wet market, rather than acknowledging that it may have started, which a lot of the agencies, CIA, and a lot of the other federal agencies now believe that it's likely that it started in the actual lab where y'all were doing the research on it, the gain of function stuff. Yeah, and it even has come out that apparently or allegedly, the people in the lab doing the studies with this actual strain of COVID, that they allegedly, right? Some people have said that they actually contracted it way earlier. So there's been, when we rely on the experts, it's exactly what we were talking about earlier when it came to the education system. The experts are being controlled by the elites, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's science. The experts are getting controlled by the people that fund their white papers. A lot of these studies that are done on the pharmaceuticals, the studies are being sponsored by the pharmaceutical companies. Think about that. I'm going to pay a journalist to do a study on, it's like paying somebody. You own a restaurant and you're going to pay somebody to do a food review. Hey, I'm going to pay you every month to do a food review at my restaurant. Do you think that that's a conflict of interest, that you're getting paid by the person that is you're trying to give a review to? Like, you get what I'm saying? So let's keep going. I'm sure you guys you'll grasp what's going on as we go.
Hang on, you know all about this as well. You say, I'm not a historian, but I'm going to spend my time talking about history. I'm not a journalist, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm going to spend my time talking about this thing. It's a weird move, yeah?
No.
You don't think?
No, I'm a free American. I can talk about what I like to.
You can talk about
so
what you want.
So what is the point
I've
here?
noticed you can. But,
but
we
what's
all
the
can.
point?
The point is, what are you pushing? What are you watering?
What
Why?
am I pushing?
Yes.
Liberty, free markets, peace, prosperity, not getting in another stupid catastrophic war, which we're on the precipice of right now. That's what I'm pushing.
What are we on the precipice of?
Well, I think weren't you just talking about it the other day? Everyone I hear on the inside says we're about to attack Iran. I think you just said something about that the other day. Am I wrong about that? I thought I saw in one of your interviews that you did.
Possibly.
No. Okay.
That doesn't mean
Possibly.
we are on the verge of a war. I mean, you keep referring to we being in wars. There's a very big difference between a country having a military that's engaged and a country being at war.
I'm not sure that y'all just heard what he just said. I want to play it back again. He has an issue with Dave Smith saying we are getting ready to go to war, because he's saying, well, that's not we, that's not the country, that's the military. That's a very interesting mindset that I want y'all to keep in mind when we listen to the rest of these clips. I'm going to go back a little bit.
I thought I saw in one of your interviews that you did.
Possibly.
No. Okay.
That doesn't mean we are on the verge of a war. I mean, you keep referring to we being in wars. There's a very big difference between a country having a military that's engaged and a country being at war. This country has not been at war for 25 years. You have not been fighting for the American homeland for 25 years.
Yes, we haven't. That's true.
Right.
We haven't had a war
Right.
on our shores. We've been picking on third world countries halfway around the world.
Well, you haven't been randomly picking on them. I mean, Afghanistan, you went...
I didn't say it
into-
was random.
Yeah, right, okay. It wasn't like you suddenly decided to bomb, again, Myanmar or something. You went for Afghanistan to find bin Laden and take revenge for 9/11 and stop an attack like that happening again on the American homeland.
To take revenge for 9/11. You went to Afghanistan to take revenge, to find bin Laden, okay. But to take revenge for 9/11, I didn't even hear that the first time that I watched it. This is why we are closer and closer to Judgment Day. This is why eventually God is just going to flood the planet again, or figure out another way to do it. Revenge, that word. This is why we may look at the Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf situation the way that we do. This is why war will never stop. You did something over here, so now we're going to not only just get bin Laden, but we're going to take revenge on your people. Maybe I heard that wrong.
Or something. You went for Afghanistan to find bin Laden and take revenge for 9/11 and stop an attack like that happening again on the American homeland. That is very different from a country being at war.
Yeah, but
Having-
that's a total mischaracterization of the war in Afghanistan. It's one thing to say that might be an accurate characterization of the special operations mission in late 2001, but then
I'm
we
saying-
fought
yes,
a
because then
20-year regime
yes,
change war against the Taliban.
Because you got dragged into the quicksand of war.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, fine, but
Fine.
I thought it wasn't a war. Like, what? I don't get
No,
your
I
argument.
said it was a war. It's your use of we, as if you're personally like suffering this war. I mean,
Yeah,
you're a
yes,
taxpayer.
when I say we,
we're
it
taxpayers,
implied,
so we
okay.
pay for it. Okay.
You said we as if you're personally suffering this war. This man looks at war like pieces on a chessboard. This man looks at war when think about having a draft or sending off our young men and women to war. You say we as if you're personally affected by it. Don't we celebrate Veterans Day? And whenever Veterans Day comes around, I'm always on Instagram and I'm seeing a lot of people that are thanking their family members for their service for helping protect this country. And this man is sitting here saying, why are you saying we, as if you're personally affected by it? As if you're personally affected by the United States dropping bombs, or Barack Obama dropping bombs, killing women and children. Go back to the debate with Ben Carson when Ben Carson was running for president, and they asked him during the debate, I think this was when a bunch of them were on stage, and they singled out Ben Carson and said, you know, people have, I'm paraphrasing, you know, people look at you as a very nice person. You're a surgeon. You've saved lives. You know, now on the flip side, if you became president, would you be able to do something like drop a bomb and kill thousands of women and children? So that shouldn't be taken personal. This is exactly what happens when we're looking at this Austin Metcalf, Karmelo Anthony situation. We are literally looking at it as if we're rooting for a sports team. No, Austin Metcalf was right. No, Karmelo Anthony was right. Rather than just saying like, yo, if Austin Metcalf put hands on Karmelo Anthony, that was wrong. And if Karmelo Anthony, the way that he responded, killing him with a knife, that was wrong. Like, can we just start from that premise? But instead, we feel like, nah, we got to pick a side. We got to root for a team. You can't root for the Giants and the Eagles. You got to pick one. This is our mindset. And he wants us to not take war personally. He wants us to not take the fact that our tax dollars, our energy, whatever it is, it doesn't even matter if our tax dollars weren't contributing to it. When we hear different stories about certain things that are happening, vicious things that are happening, genocides that are happening, are we not supposed to take that personally just from a standpoint of humanity? Yo, it's when you hear people like him talk, what's going on in the world makes a lot of sense. I will say that.
If you're personally like suffering this war,
Listen to this.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, fine. But
Fine.
I thought it wasn't a war. Like, what? I don't get your
No, I said
argument.
it was a war. It's your use of we, as if you're personally like suffering this war. I mean,
Yeah,
you're a
yes,
taxpayer.
when I say we,
we're
it
taxpayers,
implied,
so we
okay.
pay for it. Okay, fine.
Douglas, would
But,
you go,
I mean,
if I went back and corrected you on every time you've used the term we to refer to your government or something like that? Like if I were to say, oh, we just
It's fine,
imposed
just
tariffs
you-
on China,
it's
would
just
you point out that
take
I
it-
didn't
you
and it was the
take
Trump administration?
I'm saying you take it obviously very personally, and that's your right to do so, of course. I'm just trying to make sure we're accurate here.
What do you think I'm taking personally?
Just that, the American wars.
Sure, yeah. I think they've killed hundreds of thousands of people and cost my country $8 trillion and degraded my country very much.
And there's a very good argument to make on that. I'm still slightly bemused about this move from I'm an expert on this and I have views to I'm a comedian.
There's a very good argument to make on that, but let's not talk about that. Let's go back to you being a comedian and feeling like you can speak on these issues. If you feel like he's not qualified as a comedian to speak on these issues, why not just say where he's wrong and why it's so dangerous for him to speak on these issues by bringing up the areas in which he's wrong on? This is the same thing that that's why I didn't address Von's last comment. Bring up what issue do you have? Like, stop with all the name calling, stop with all the speaking from your high horse and saying, yes, if you're not an expert, you shouldn't speak on this. Like, what do you have? What issue do you have with what I said? Point out where I'm wrong. Point out where you're right. And let's debate on those things rather than whether or not I should even be able to have an opinion or not.
I've never claimed to be an expert on anything.
But on this, slightly bemused about this move from I'm an expert on this and I have views to I'm a comedian.
I've never claimed to be an expert on anything.
This is the problem, Joe. I mean, if somebody
Wait a minute,
says
you have to claim to be an expert on something to have an opinion on something?
you don't have to be. You don't have to be. But
So what's
this is
the
like
issue?
I'm not a historian, but I'm pumping out history.
But wait a minute,
I'm
what
not
about
an expert,
just-
but I'm talking all the time about
But
this
you're not
thing.
even talking about specifically on what he just said.
No, I'm saying this is my point about this. You say I'm not an expert.
So what's the solution? To not talk about it?
No, it's to have more experts around.
Well, the expert
To
class
hear-
hasn't done a great job,
I know.
man. This is follow the science.
Absolutely,
Yeah, but you know what?
absolutely, I
Okay, so
agree
fine.
with
So
that.
during,
I just said to you, I agree with that.
Please listen to what's getting ready to listen to what Dave Smith is getting ready to say, please.
Just follow the science. Yeah, but you know what?
I
Okay,
agree
so fine.
with
So
that.
during,
I just said to you, I agree with that.
Right, I know.
But
so
one
Douglas,
of the problems
during
is,
all of
Fire
COVID,
away.
I will put my track record against any of the expert class on COVID. I'm glad to do that. So should I have just shut up? Should I have shut up by opposing lockdowns and opposing vaccine mandates and talking
that
about
was
the
the
lab leak
argument at the
theory?
time. You realize
that's
that,
the
right?
entire argument that you're making. Let the experts handle this.
So, and the clip cuts off, and we got another clip that we're going to show y'all as well. But think about that. This man is saying, you're claiming to be an expert, which he says, I've never claimed to be an expert. And he says, that's the problem. And then Joe Rogan says, so you have to claim to be an expert to have an opinion on something? No, you don't have to. What he's really saying is that unless you're, what I said earlier, if you're not an expert, then you need to agree with how I see things, or else you shouldn't be speaking on certain things. Then Dave Smith says, so during COVID, I would put my record up against any of the so-called experts, and I'd be right across the board. Should I not have said anything? All these people that Mark Zuckerberg acknowledged that the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris administration forced them to censor on a lot of these meta platforms and other platforms because they were saying things that weren't aligned with what Dr. Fauci and the government wanted to push, the so-called experts, which they ended up admitting that they were wrong on a lot of the stuff, like Fauci making up the 6 feet distancing, just made it up. So all of these so-called experts, Dave Smith is saying, I'll put my record up against it. So then the guy, Douglas, he's saying, well, no, you're allowed to have an opinion. And then he says, yeah. And Dave Smith is saying, well, the experts have been wrong. And he's like, yeah, I know the experts have been wrong. So should I not say anything? Oh, the solution is to have more experts around it. Military mind games. What do they say? It's the mental manipulation. It really is. So I'm going to play this other clip. I'm going to play this next clip that I thought was, I think this summed up. This may have been, when I said this is disgusting, it was to two parts. What we're getting ready to see, and then what he said earlier about we shouldn't be taking war not seriously. We shouldn't be taking war personally. So pretty much what he's saying is, when we hear stories about, let's say, what's going on in Gaza, we shouldn't take that personally. Your personal life isn't get affected by that. So why do you take it personally? What? So when Israel lobbies in American politics, isn't that them kind of pushing their personal views and their perspective on America? But Americans shouldn't be able to take what's going on or what's happening, especially when our dollars are contributing to it. We shouldn't be able to take that personally. As soon as we stop taking deaths personally, we are moving in the most ungodly way possible, in my opinion. Don't the commandments say thou shalt not kill? It doesn't say thou shalt not kill, but don't take it personally if it's some brown people in the Middle East. Unless the book says that, and I'm not aware of it. It doesn't say don't take it personally if there's Russians or Ukrainians killed. Should we not take it personally when Jewish hostages are taken, Israeli hostages are taken, sorry? Should we not take that personally? Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that. I guess that's okay to take personally. Let's check out this other video. Let's check out this other video. All right.
children in Gaza.
Listen, let me just, how about I say it like this, okay? And by the way, when I say it like this, I'm not claiming that disputes between nations are the same as handling dispute domestically. I'm just saying on the idea of intentionality or who wants to do this. Or
let me. All right. So I'm in Miami. When I drive through Miami Beach, there's a couple different places where they have all of the hostages that were taken, all of the Israeli hostages that were taken on buildings and like electric billboards. There's one spot on Alton Road where they're on, it's like an electric billboard, I believe. And then the other spot is down like off the 40th Street Bridge when you're getting ready to cross over to Mid Beach, where it's on the side of a building. All the hostages that were either, taken, kidnapped, and some of them were killed. Should I, first and foremost, well, the point of putting it up there, I would assume, is so we do take it personally. So we're made aware of it. So we have some sort of empathy, right? At the very least, and maybe even sympathy with the situation. And I think a lot of us do take it personally. And see, this is the thing, when we step out of rooting for this thing like a sports team, to me it becomes very simple. What's wrong with saying this? It was absolutely wrong for Hamas to kidnap Israelis. Period. And then in the next sentence say, it has been absolutely wrong for however many 50,000 plus and what has happened in Gaza with those amount of Palestinians being killed, the majority or a lot, women and children. What's wrong with saying that? Why do we have to look at this as I'm on this side, I'm on that side? Whatever is going to get accomplished. Isn't that like the main thing when it comes to mediating situations? You can't just be on one side or can't just be on the other side, or else you're never going to be able to mediate this. Like you're never going to be able to come to some sort of common ground, or even if you don't come to common ground, it seems like you're never going to be able to stop it without taking the heavy losses that both sides may take in certain situations, or that one side, obviously, when it comes to Israeli and Palestine, one side is taking it a whole lot more than the other. What is wrong with, like, how do we get to a point where, like, if we were explaining this situation to little kids, I feel like little kids would have a more practical viewpoint on this. How do we get to a certain point where we're justifying this group retaliating and killing this group because of what somebody from that group did? How do we get to like I don't get it. It's never going to end. It's tit for tat. This is two kids in school going back and forth each other, and the principal finally saying like, well, he hit me last, so now I got to get my last. Oh, he hit me last. Like, is there like, do we have an obligation or a responsibility to try to figure out this situation without losing as many lives, or should we just not take this personal? That's my question.
Or whatever. Look, even if you had the right, let's say somebody broke onto your property and killed some of your family members and you want to go kill this guy. If he goes back to his apartment building and you know that there's women in,
I want to make sure y'all hear this whole story. Let me rewind it back because I cut it off, and that's my apology.
Children in Gaza.
Listen, let me just, how about I say it like this, okay? And by the way, when I say it like this, I'm not claiming that disputes between nations are the same as handling dispute domestically. I'm just saying on the idea of intentionality or who wants to do this or whatever. Look, even if you had the right, let's say somebody broke onto your property and killed some of your family members and you want to go kill this guy. If he goes back to his apartment building and you know that there's women and children in that apartment building, and so your move is to blow up the building, what you would be charged with is murder in the first degree. Cold-blooded, premeditated, intentional murder. And you could sit there and tell the judge, I didn't want to kill all those people. Why would I want to kill all of those people? I just had to kill that one guy. But that's bullshit. That's not what counts. You did it intentionally. You dropped a bomb knowing that there were women and children in that building. You're taking an action knowing that these innocent people are going to die. Then that is by definition intentional. And, you know, you could sit here and talk about, and it is true, there have been documented cases of Hamas placing missiles in mosques and in schools and things like that. But when you look at the aerial footage of Gaza, that does not describe every single strike that Israel has launched. There have been tons of bombs dropped where it's simply, and we have very good reporting on this, where they've literally just have information that they believe with some degree of certainty that a couple of Hamas militants are in this building, and so they blow up the building. That is intentionally murdering innocent people. And if you're going to advocate for this war, I don't see how you can do it without saying that, like, at least bite the bullet that Madeleine Albright did when she was asked, we've played this clip on the show before, when she's point blank asked about the sanctions on Iraq and our 500,000 children, is that price acceptable? And she said, yes, we believe that price is acceptable. You're saying if you're going to support this war, you know this is the price of it. So why can't you just say, yes, that price is acceptable? Because then we could have a real conversation about why the other side is going to look at you like a monster.
Israelis would.
As I'm listening to what Dave Smith is saying, it's very hard for me to understand how somebody couldn't, like, at least understand his perspective. Like, I don't get how we can look at it. I'm trying not to just say you got to look at it Dave Smith's way. But the example that he gave, it seems to be a pretty good example. You know, if somebody comes in and does something to me in my apartment right now, just going to give the same example that Dave said, just reiterate it. If somebody comes in and does something in my apartment right now, they do something to me or somebody in the apartment, I then can't go to their building where they're at or their place of work and say, nah, I got to get this person. I'm going to poison the water in the entire building. So therefore I can address that person. You can't put other people at risk. And to what degree, if, and I don't know if we played this part where Dave said it, if the Israeli military, if there's an understanding that, we may not be able to get rid of Hamas, we may not be able to get rid of all of them. We can do all this stuff. And at what expense is it worth trying to get rid of all of them? What are we okay with as human beings? Like, what life amount of loss, what lost life, innocent life being lost on the other side is worth us justifying getting rid of this particular group? And see the empathy in me and me taking things personally, because if I didn't take things personally, then I would just have that viewpoint maybe and not even give any consideration to what Hamas did to Israel. I can take personally as well that the fact that, I'd be pissed off if Israel or if Hamas came and kidnapped some of my family. Like, I'd be pissed off. I'd probably be ready to do whatever and whenever. And I would be so emotionally involved in that situation because I would take it so personally that I'd probably be willing to go to certain lengths that I talk about on this show that I shouldn't go to. But this is the thing. I do not want people in my corner, my support system, amping me up saying, nah, go do it, go do it. Or people who don't know me saying, nah, go do it, go do it, go do it. I would want them to calm me down and say, hey, we understand something happened to you, but you can't just go crash out and now go put other people that had absolutely nothing to do with it in danger. How many times do we see, you know what's so funny? We see this situation play out in inner cities around the world where we'll see, let's say, I think there was just a recent one, either in like Chicago or New York or something, where a stray bullet, you know, two guys were shooting at each other. One guy was trying to kill one of his ops or whatever, enemies, and a stray bullet ended up hitting like a little girl or something like that. We've heard these situations. Is that justified? Like, are we okay with that? Oh, well, he was trying to kill the one person who killed his man or who shot at him, so therefore it was. I don't get it. I don't get it. Like, let me not say that I don't get it. I understand the anger and the emotion around it, and maybe anger and emotion is not a strong enough word to use it, but there has to be some sort of principles based on maybe the principles that the Bible says of thou shalt not kill. You know, maybe that's Old Testament thinking, an eye for an eye. We have to evolve, because an eye for an eye is only going to have a world of blind people. That's what it leads to. And maybe that's a metaphor for exactly where we are right now in life. I don't know. Shout out to Queez. Queez just popped in. Yeah, Queez. It's we reviewed the Dave Smith Douglas Murray debate on Joe Rogan. I suggest that everybody. It's about 3 hours. The first 40 minutes is probably the toughest part to get through, and then I can't even say that. The first 40 minutes is tough to get through, and then that very tough to get through, and that makes it very tough to get through the other stuff as well. Shout out to Anthony's in the building as well. Let me finish up with this conversation around. There were just a couple things that I wanted to mention on the Karmelo Anthony situation and Austin Metcalf, and then we'll get out of here. I want to ask again, why do we feel like we have to choose sides, as if there's a black and white situation here? Choosing sides is the beginning of extremism and radicalism, rather than having empathy for both sides, a true understanding from both sides. We're not rooting. Like, this is not us watching March Madness and we have to pick between who's going to win Houston and Florida. It's not us choosing who's going to win the Super Bowl. I don't even know who played in the last Super Bowl. Oh yeah, the Eagles in Kansas City. We don't have to do that. It doesn't benefit us to do that. It benefits us in sports because that's a totally different arena. That's okay for just one team to win. But in humanity, it's not just okay for one team to win, because sometimes when one team wins, a whole lot of other people on the other side are either killed, oppressed, their land destroyed, pillaged, raped, all these type of things. We see this happen in our world on multiple occasions when you just pick sides, right? Should go back to slavery? Okay, I'm white, so I'm just going to pick the side of, hey, we're just going to enslave the Negroes. Is that okay? Or should I say, oh, I'm German, so I'm just going to rock out with Hitler? You can't just pick sides just because you, on the level of appearance, appear to be on one. You have to be able to look at both sides, look at both perspectives. We just had the clip of the video of the spy, and he gave some of the best advice. He says, perception versus perspective. We all look at things through our individual perspective, but we lack perception. We lack perception of being able to take a step back, look at the full picture, not only of what has happened and what's happening right now, but where all this will lead to. If we don't take that stuff into consideration, then we're always going to only think short term and justify things short term, which are usually the emotional side of things, rather than the logical side of how things will play out in the long term. We see this every day in our lives. So Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf. Why do we feel like we got to pick a side? That would be the question that I asked. And in my opinion, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but I wrote down like saying anything less than, or maybe it's saying anything more than, I don't know. Saying anything other than, how about that? Both sides were wrong. If Austin Metcalf, let's say, put hands or pushed or whatever, Karmelo Anthony, and then Karmelo Anthony it's clear, it seems to be clear that he, stabbed Austin Metcalf. I don't know if we need to see a video on it. Saying anything other than, yo, that was wrong and that was wrong. You can say that was wrong and that was real wrong, but can we at least establish the fact that both were wrong? That you got one kid who's dead, taken away from his family, taken away from all the things that his actual life, forget taken away from his family, he had his life taken away from him. And then you got the other kid on the other side who now has to not only live with the fact that he took away somebody else's life, violated a commandment, right? Now he's got to maybe be in jail for a very long time, maybe not. But even if he doesn't have to, he has to have that weight on his. It's a terrible situation for both. But all I do when I'm getting text messages or seeing people post certain things online, it's either free Karmelo, which is like, damn, okay, you just felt the need to have to say that, like, okay, cool, and then, well, not cool, but whatever. And then on the other side, it's Karmelo, and it's the Nick Fuentes. Black people are just more violent. We got to address. And we elaborated on that a little bit more. I'm not going to go into detail about that, but it's the extremism on both sides. That is where we live in right now. That is the world that we live in right now. And all it does is serve as a detriment to us as a people. It literally drains the soul out of our country. It drains the soul out of the world, out of humanity, out of us as individuals. It drains the soul out of us. So therefore, we look at stuff like Douglas Murray looked at it, which is to say, well, why do you take, these women and children being bombed personally? It's not like you're dying. It's not like you got a bomb dropping on you. Why take it so personally? That's the world that we're living in. So I'm going to end it there. It's almost 10 o'clock. Hopefully I can get y'all out of here in the next 3 minutes. But of course, as we finish every show, let's take 45 seconds to, manifest, meditate, do whatever it is that you need to do. And my fault. Let me catch up with the comments. My apologies. Antonice wrote, great question. Appreciate it, Antonice. That's literally the question that I was asking. I'm over here like, why are people picking side? Like, why you got to pick a side? Like, what benefit will that lead to? And why do we feel like we need to put pressure on us? And it's because of how divisive this country is right now. It's because of how on edge, how anxious, how stressed out the average American is right now. How scared. And who wants us to feel that way so they'll have more control? The elites, the politicians, the people that control the politicians. We got to be able to see things from that standpoint, or we're just going to keep getting caught up in this cycle of war and justifying why it's okay to kill this group of people, but not okay to kill that group of people, and vice versa. All right. Queez wrote, yeah, it seems like everything is racial nowadays. Everything is racial. Like, damn. Antonice wrote, yeah, that's been my stance. They both were wrong and could have made another choice. Simple, Antonice. Why is it so? But do you realize that how warped and how manipulated we have to be to where we can't look at the situation just as you described in your comment, Antonice? Yeah, that's been both were wrong and could have made another choice. Why can't we look at it like that? All right. All right. So 45 seconds, you take the time, meditate, manifest, get your breath work in, clear your mind, do whatever it is that you need to do. You know what we set out every Sunday and Monday to do. Make this our greatest week ever. So maybe focus on some things aligned with that. Every breath, every exhale, y'all know what we do. We get rid of all that negative energy. Every inhale, we're inhaling nothing but positives, nothing but positives. All right. Glasses half full. That's the mindset that we're on, right? That's the mindset, focusing on the positive. All right. So 45 seconds. You can close your eyes. You can keep them open. I'm closing mine. 45 seconds starting now. All right, one more exhale. Exhaling all the BS, all the negative energy. Inhaling All that positive energy, positive vibes. All right, so y'all know what it is. Y'all know what we come here to do. Elevate on purpose, both from an intentional standpoint, challenging ourselves to raise our standards to become the best leaders we can become, and to grow into the individuals that we need to become to accomplish these amazing goals that we set for ourselves. Strength and honor, onward and upward. Get to that bag. Y'all know what I mean when I say get to that bag. If you don't, that's all the little things that we're going to do as we set out today to make this our greatest week ever. What are the little things that we're going to do today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, so that we have a fighting chance on Friday to accomplish that goal? Those are those little things. That's what I mean about getting to the bag, collecting those little things along the way, and us being able to focus and making sure that we're aligned with getting to that goal, whatever our purpose is, as we strive for purposeful abundance as efficient as possible. All right. So y'all decide what's in y'all bag. Like I said earlier with Jordan Peterson, determine what you desire and then base your actions off of that. So what's in my bag? Peace, love, happiness, health, wealth, and in everything we do, integrity. And on that note, Quee sent the fire emojis. So y'all know what that means. I shall see y'all on Wednesday. Y'all have an amazing day. Anthony said, yes, be great. Nothing but positivity and light to all y'all. All right. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good one. Ew.